Guys, intro time.
Wait, which intro?
The wisdom check.
Oh, good.
Wait, no. I thought we were keeping the old intro. What's wrong with the old one? People like that one.
It was too long.
Yeah.
Too many fucking gifs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can we keep the part where I yell, more?
No.
But it's the intro to end all intros.
I got, like, what? 2 lines last time?
Do you want more lines, Tim?
Well, no, not really.
In a world without answers.
Yeah.
Wait, you want to start with that?
Here we go. Exactly like last time.
Wait, okay, so we're doing it the exact same way? Let's start with the Smoky Bar.
No. It's a new season. We have to have a new intro.
More.
Not sure why we thought this would go any differently.
Oh, well. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check, where Jeff and Dustin welcome a guest every week to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome.
This is ridiculous. I'm starting the stream now.
Wait, where's my die at? Well, we can't start until I botch, and it's not an intro unless I'm botching.
You're on.
Proud there, Levi.
Hi, everybody. We're giving Jeff a day off, because if you're working on your birthday, you're adulting wrong.
Uh-oh. Clint audio is muted. Nope, he got it. Okay. All right. Yay. Did that restart? Are we good?
You don't have to tell Clint. He's on it.
It's on it. Clint's on it. So, and
He's got
with
all
us
the
today,
ninja tricks.
our guest today is David Lee Pancake, artist, also Jeff's dad, but more importantly, artist, gamer.
More importantly,
who in no way, shape, or form has just confined Jeff to around the corner where he's not allowed to now walk behind him for the next 2 hours. So thank you, Dave, for being on the show with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So, apparently I'm fuzzy today. I don't know what's going on with that either, but
Yeah, you're a little fuzzy.
we'll get it. We'll get that figured out. I don't know what's going on, but so anyway, thanks for being on the show, Dave. We of course like to always start out with the easy questions of how did you ever get into gaming to begin with?
Yes.
I think it was because I'd gone to the sci-fi shows for a long time. There was a gal and a couple in Paris, Illinois, Ginny and Dick Roller, who went to the shows, and they got me involved in the sci-fi shows. And then one thing led to another, and then I started going to the gaming shows. Then I met Brian Umberger, who had a little gaming group going. So I just kind of fell into it.
That's awesome.
So starting out with shows like Star Trek, did you go into then Star Trek games, or did you start with D&D?
We did some D&D, but there was a lot of Shadowrun, and we played a lot of Star Trek, and played one game of Star Wars that lasted for I don't know how many weeks, but it was a long time.
Nice.
A long-term Star Wars game even, huh?
Yeah.
So was there amongst your characters like a theme of things that you like to play? Like what's your play style like?
Well, I always like wizards and that type of thing.
See? Man after my own heart. Magic power.
I always like the magic power thing, yeah.
Yes! He has taste. You don't go stabby, you go magic powers.
But in Star Wars, I played a Guido type character, and I ended up betraying the whole group.
Nice. Whole party? Sold them all out?
Oh, yeah. They were really mad at me.
Nice.
Who knows how long that game might have gone if you hadn't sold them all out then, right? That's got to be how that game ended, right?
Yeah. There was a couple of Star Trek games that I had. I never followed the rules all that carefully, but I did like to. I did like to be a GM for some of them. And one particular one, I took a page out of what was the name of the Stargate theme where they went to that one planet and they go unconscious, and then they wake up and they think that they're themselves, but they're really not. The robot selves. And so I did that. I did that to the group in Star Trek. And I guess the guys that hadn't seen that particular episode. So it was really fun. And they were really pissed when they found out that they were not really their characters. It was a problem to think about, because what do? You didn't really gain those points while you're while you were playing. Your character didn't take it. Because your character was asleep.
Then you're like, okay, everyone, back to third level.
Right. Levels. Oh, that's cold-blooded.
That's cool. And this, people, there you got it. The entire history of David Pancake's gaming career, from player to sold out the party, forced to GM, did that once, and that was it, right? And they were like, they play with this guy ever again.
But that's cool. Here's why it's cool. Because you're not a rules guy, and neither are Dustin or me. So there you go.
You're amongst your own today.
He loves it.
Jeff's gonna come run around the corner and have to hop in and go, like, no,
Son's from a betraying tribe. Rules crunchers.
Oh man, that's harsh.
Well, just the way it turned out. So the way my personality runs.
We were talking a little before we got started that I remember one game where I actually played with you, and I was trying to remember if you were a player. I think I don't remember who was GMing it. Maybe Umberger was GMing. We were playing Star Trek.
Okay.
And your character had sexy +2 as a trait, and we have trait forever. Was that your character?
It was like,
picked sexy
what?
+2. And I know nothing about Star Trek. I'm a Star Wars fan. I knew very little. So I remember I made some soldier who had done tours of duty at Nomula 5, so I could just run around and talk about my time in Nom.
Nomula 5.
It was I just contrived this whole story and just ran off of it because I had nothing else I could really possibly do with it, because I know nothing about that universe, unfortunately. But it was a fun game.
Dragons in the Dining Room. Thank you.
Thank you for the raid.
It was, I don't know, the Star Trek, the thing that really got me about that is when we started calculating the distances that you had to travel. And it's like, you're kidding me. This cannot possibly be true. And then I take a look and you think, oh yeah, it is. That's the way it would be. Even at warp speeds, it took months to get all the way across the Federation.
Jesus.
Yeah, and they make it when you watch those sorts of things happen in the shows, that's clever editing, if you will.
That's all downtime.
It's all downtime you never see. I thought that was kind of one of the cooler things they did with some of the newer movies for Star Wars, was they showed them in hyperspace hanging out while the ship's moving in hyperspace. You don't ever see that. Now you kind of get to see a little of that. And so they're kind of starting to, I think, more acknowledge that. Whereas the TV shows for Star Trek and in the past, they just cut to coming out and being like, here we are, we're there.
Yeah, that's just done.
So those are, so I think it's safe to say you've always had a fascination with the space frontier and with the
very strong. Even when I was a young person, 16 years old, I had a telescope and a 6th inch reflector, and I saved up for months to get that thing, and subscribed to all of the science news magazines, and was just a real geek towards science at that point. And then all of the sci-fi magazines as well. I was just stocked up on it. But that was from, I might have even been younger, 13, 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that area.
So is that early 70s? Or is that, when is that?
Yeah, I would have, I was 10 years old when, 11 years old when we landed on the moon.
Oh my
and
God.
I remember it very clearly.
Oh yeah.
It was like, I know I can't even describe it to you, what that meant to an 11-year-old at that time. We were watching it on a little bitty tiny black and white TV. And it it was really scratchy. I mean, you could have it could have been done easily in a studio somewhere.
Yeah. Funny thing is that tiny little TV is still probably bigger than the screen on the smartphone that we'd be watching it on today if it was you think about it, like we would have had a clearer picture, but your TV was technically bigger probably than what most people would watch it on. If it
we went from smaller to bigger to smaller again. So we've kind of covered game background. What about art background?
Yeah.
What's the earliest you felt I'm an art person, I'm an arter, I'm an artist? When did that happen for you?
Oh, I started drawing when I was very young, and then I did my first sculpture when I was 7.
Oh my God! Of what? What'd you make?
It was a little dog. I just, and I wish we still had it, but things get lost in time.
Was it like for a project where you were like asked to do one, or this is the first time that you sat down and was like, I just want to create something and create it?
Oh, I was just creating. I would spend time, late at night, whenever I could get opportunity to stay up, and I would just sit there and draw and watch scary movies and really have fun.
So would that have been like modeling clay or Play-Doh, or what would it have been like?
It was my first introduction to clay, and I don't remember how I got the clay.
Okay.
But
That's
awesome. It was fun.
My first 3D material was probably Play-Doh. Like, I can't think of anything that would have happened before that, honestly.
I had Play-Doh too.
I think I had Play-Doh, but this was, I felt like this was clay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do, once you could schedule classes your own, well, actually, I'm assuming a lot. When you were in high school, could you set up your own class schedule the way you chose? Did you have electives you could take?
No, the thing about my education was, I was brought up in a very strict religious, I don't know what you want to call them. My mom was very religious, and so she sent us to a Christian school, and that's where, things stayed that way all the way up into where I went to a boarding academy.
Boarding
so you did go to boarding
Where
school.
would that have been?
It was right here in Indiana, in Kokomo. So, no, excuse me, Cicero, Indiana. But Kokomo's near it. So,
Yeah, okay. I know where Kokomo is, so I got an idea where you're at.
yeah.
Wow.
So do you feel like that time had an influence on your art?
Maybe negative.
Oh, no.
I had some teachers who were very, some supported, but others were like very critical of. I remember drawing a poster, and I put, I don't remember what the subject matter was. I think it was like anti-smoking or something. And I had put this cityscape up, and I put in one of the windows a woman smoking. But I drew her like a woman, and the teacher took real offense to that, and so it really came heavy down on me about what my subject matter was and how I was doing it. And no, it wasn't really an encouraged thing.
How long was the boarding school?
Oh, I stayed there through all of my high school years.
Wow.
Yeah, and worked.
That's cool.
I worked at a plastic company that was there part of the school's work to pay for your way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I worked 20 hours a week and went to high school.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah. Okay, so you're out. What happened after high school with art? Did things progress? Did things wait? What happened after that?
They kind of went on a back burner.
Okay.
I would occasionally draw some things, but
Sure.
I wish now I if I was doing it over, I would go to art school and have a good time. But as it turned out, I went to theology and did the whole thing there.
So for all your details, you are self-taught.
Yes.
In essence.
Yes.
That's amazing, and
That is
that's
crazy.
hugely inspirational. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I would assumed you'd have taken some art classes throughout school,
For your
or
detail,
yeah.
that's impressive, especially because I think any kind of art education doesn't teach as much ability as it teaches work ethic, organizational habits, and introduction to new mediums that you might not have tried otherwise on your own. I feel like I more just throw things at the kids, but I don't necessarily make them better at art. I'm more like I feel like a talent scout that throws challenges at them, but that's about it, you know? So the fact that you got to what you're able to do on your own with no motivation beyond intrinsic that's fantastic. That's awesome.
Well, you got to say one thing for the cons that I went to and the people that I met. When I say that I did it on my own, but really I would go to some of these sci-fi conventions, and some of the best artists in the world were there. I remember meeting Bob Beagleton and Michael Whalen and
that's awesome.
Just whole bunches of these people,
So these would be guys that like in the 70s would be like doing the art that would appear on paperbacks and things like that, and serials and magazines like Heavy Metal and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
And then, and it wasn't until later that the gaming industry took over, as a major source of getting hired. And
so you're like hitting cons at like the Frank Frazetta area of art, like that era of time. That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. So you
could go to one of these conventions and you could see Frazetta or something else hanging right there, and you had the privilege
just right there.
Yeah, just right there, and you had the privilege of just like on the next aisle over, you could hang up yours,
Yeah,
if you had the courage, which I did. I just went ahead and I was just like, God, heck. One of my favorites was meeting Don Mates. I've always liked Don Mates. He's the guy that did Captain Morgan, rum dude.
Oh my God! Really?
He's done all the pirates, and he's that dude.
That guy right here. I got his art hanging in my house too, Dave.
But he's a swell character. So yeah, a lot of these guys, I mean, they were doing things that were remarkable at that time. And it was all just very close, because these conventions were not like today's conventions where you go to like a Comic-Con or something. Comic-Con gets 20,000 to 50, 80,000 people, but those cons were maybe if you stretched it like 2,000,
Oh my God.
And then some of them are a lot smaller, but a lot of fun.
A few years back, we went to Gen Con, and they had the floor plan of the very first Gen Con inside Lucas Oil Stadium. You go stand inside the shadow footprint of what the entire con was for the first one.
God.
And it was so small. Like, you didn't realize just how small the first Gen Con was. And this is about that same time period. I mean, it was, you start looking at it like it literally was just this tiny little area inside of Lucas Oil Stadium.
Well, hold on. Would the first Gen Con have been at the Lake Geneva Resort?
Yeah, Lake Geneva Resort.
Okay.
But then they moved here.
Right.
I remember going when the art show was in a separate room, not in the dealer's room. It was in a separate room. You're kind of hidden away.
Artists go in the corner. Get in the corner, artists.
Different ball game altogether. It was tough sometimes.
That's great.
But
So, when did you make the big jump to I'm gonna commit this as the job, the life? When is I'm gonna start making this and make it work?
well, I'm sorry to say I didn't do it earlier. That's for sure. Hindsight, whatever.
2020. Yeah.
Mhm. But it was right after it was November 2010 that stands out in my mind. It was I lose a job, go from I was doing art director for a furniture company, doing $65,000 a year, went to zero, and said, "Hey, I know what I'm going to do."
I mean, to your credit, you've always been one who's been willing to take those kind of risks. Because I remember, like, you were someone in Paris. You ran a internet company and a printing shop.
Yes, I did. Yeah,
And you've always been an entrepreneur. You've always been your own boss a lot of times. As far as
Honestly,
long as I had
before pretty much anybody, you had to have been one of the first internet companies in Paris.
we were close. Yes,
Okay.
and one of the reasons why I got into that was the same reason I got in the printing business. Early on, I got fascinated with computers. I mean, this was way back. My first computer was a Commodore 64. And then
Commodore 64.
I had one of those too.
Then I upgraded to that little 9-inch screen for the Mac. But I got interested in that because that had an element of art. It had an element of design, and I found that it was just like, I can do this. I can design almost anything I want to design. So that got me into printing, and then later on, I got interested in this new thing called websites, and I thought, hey, this would be awesome if we could design our own website, and then maybe I could do it for other people. And the way I want to do this,
could that be a job?
Oh
man.
So like that was the amazing thing. I remember when I met you, I thought of you as the tech guy because you ran the print shop, you did computers, and I didn't know until the first time I went over to game it at your house with Jeff. I walk in and you got this art everywhere. Like you had easels where you were doing paintings in progress. You had sculptures in progress there on a desk and lights and all this stuff. And finally, I was like, man. Did you do all this? I remember you like, I do art and everything else. Like, man, this guy does everything.
I saw the store before I saw the house. And what threw me is I walked in the store, I look up and on the wall is fantasy artwork, which is not something you saw in our small town. Like, it didn't exist. So back in the day, without like D&D being everywhere like it is now, and without like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all this nerd culture dominating everything, if you saw any nerd flag being flown, you freaked out like you found somebody in your tribe. And I was like, what is all that? And you're like, oh, I made that. I was like, fucking what? Like, you painted all this stuff right here? And it's like, it's like, Pan's dad is like, he's one of us. And then you were the first time that I realized somebody's dad could be into gaming too.
Yeah.
And that melted my brain.
We were talking a little about this before stream. I was like, Jeff's house, your house, was the first place I ever went to where there were adults around while we gamed, and the adults knew we were gaming and were cool with it.
Yeah.
You and your wife were perfectly cool with it.
More than cool. I wish my daughter had gone into that side of it too, because I'd walk through and all of you guys would be around in that one room, and then I'd walk into the other room and there would be another group of guys, but there would only be one girl. It was like, I got it. You guys get out of here. You need to go game or something.
I think Cynthia walked through our game, stepping over some of us to another part of the house a couple times. So in that sense, she went through the game.
Yeah. I remember Joe one of the guys that you guys gamed with quite a bit, come through, and almost every time that I would come through the room, he would be laid out in the recliner, totally asleep.
Oh, I don't want to throw to the bus, but when he snored. Like,
Oh my god! Oh my god!
oh man.
Oh, nostalgia.
Yeah, it was a privilege to host you guys. I really enjoyed having you around.
It was really one of the first what they would call today safe spaces for us in that town. In a town where most people, we couldn't even tell them that we gamed.
Oh my god! Or we get so much.
We couldn't tell anybody in our town about that stuff. We kind of had to hide it, all that sort of stuff. We also
it was my house, your house, and the hangar, and then once we were all driving, whoever was hosting, and like that's how it was. Oh my god.
Man, my camera is super blurry today. I don't know what's going on there.
How from the time you committed to this is what I'm going to do, when did you get your first indication business wise that this was going to work? When did you get like that eureka, we can make this happen?
Oh, it started selling. I mean, you just have to show up, and you have to show up with something of quality.
Mm-hmm. And was that what was your first show?
My first show,
like the first show where you were showing as the sculptures and was the first thing big dragon heads? Was that the first design approach?
Even before 2010, I'd started, I'd restarted going to Gen Con, and I brought a big paper mache dragon there.
Awesome.
But it was really crude. It was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe somebody bought that. But there was a couple of really crude. I had this idea that I wanted to make something really big, and I did. Yeah. I never toyed around with any kind of like paper mache or anything like that. So I thought, well, paper mache is pretty cheap, like flour and water. It can't be that hard.
Right.
So away we went, and I did a couple of giant dragon heads, and took them to the show, and they actually sold. And what's embarrassing though is that guy, for every year that I've been there now, over the past 14 years maybe, he always comes to the booth and he goes, I got your first dragon head.
He's still there and he comes back. That's fantastic.
Could I buy it back from you? And then I'll burn it somewhere.
Destroy it. And so that was Gen Con then? That was the
I'd been going to shows way earlier than that. In fact, I remember going to Magic Con, which was a world science fiction convention in Orlando in 1991. Oh, wow. I got that little badge. I still have that. I know that I was going to WindyCon in Chicago, probably 88, 89, somewhere in that area. So I'd been going for quite a while. And then I went for quite a while, and then I just kind of quit, because I don't know. I was getting frustrated. I was trying for something that was actually dying at that time, because illustration for book covers was taking a dive, and I just kind of got discouraged and stayed home for a while. But then 2007, 2008, I picked it up again, and this time I didn't want to paint so much as I wanted to just sculpt.
That's awesome.
And boy, sculpt you have. I mean, you have quite a collection now of things that you offer through your art store, essentially.
Yes.
In your booth.
So were the dragon heads the main goal at first? Is that how it started? Oh, yes. I love the mimics.
The
He's
mimics
a
are so
dragon mimic.
Yeah, he's not painted yet, and he's got some problems, but he's just the raw resin with the different colors.
Your son has a redeemed wisdom check
Jesus.
question. He's paid cams for this. What was the original cause?
From the other room. Go ahead, Levi.
What's the original cause of the switch from painting to sculpture? Jeff, you could just walk in the room and shout it through the door.
I'm surprised he didn't just walk around the corner and be like, "Hey, Dad, why don't you tell him about that time you switched over?"
The door
from painting
opens,
to
he pops up,
sculpting?"
and then he just pops back away.
What? Not sure I understand the question, because it's really not. I mean, it was just more natural to me to sculpt anyway.
Okay.
I'm kind of a weird mix, because I look at myself as a maker of things, and not so much. I like the engineering part of it. I like the. Here, take a look at what I'm doing.
Yes.
I'm gonna do a spear.
Okay.
So there's gonna be there's gonna be an owl on the end. I'm gonna do that out of EVA foam, and
nice.
then I'll do a little eagle claw. I mean, not eagle, but owl claw here, and then this little tip down here with an obsidian spear point. And then this part up here is going to be a cutaway inside this the staff of the spear, and I'm going to put a little bit of liquid in a little clear tube.
Oh, that is awesome!
So it's going to be implying that it comes down and it feeds out these little holes right there.
Nice.
So cool.
That's a commission, by the way.
That's okay. I was going to ask you that. So that's a commission work that you're doing now.
Is that a prop weapon?
Inspiration.
That's going to go under a Dracolich, the head of a Dracolich.
Oh, awesome!
So, as his weapon of choice to take down the Dracolich.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I was on that stuff. I said that's what I told me years ago. I was like, if I ever get one of those dragon heads, and I do want to get one, I'll talk my wife into it one of these days. Don't you worry. Once I'm sure my 4-year-old won't destroy it somehow, it'll hang up here in my man cave wall. But I said, like, I want to get one that looks like he's been killed, like has a slash down his face or something. Like, I could put the sword there next to it. Like, I want it to look like it's the weapon that slayed it.
That's awesome.
So this guy's like, I guess that's my goal. Like, is to get something like that at some point. Like, that'd be amazing. So
this one's going to have like his snout is going to be cut away, and there's going to be blue light glowing inside there. He's got some rotting flesh on him, and then he's got a gouge on his neck that's going to have the blue lights, and then a lot of muscle tissue that you can see into. And his spine is going to be kind of rotten looking.
That's awesome.
And of course, kind of a gray look, and then all blue. With the guy wanted the blue for the interior of it, but then wanted glowing red eyes. So we're going to do that too.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Okay, hold on. So does he have the Lich Head already? The Dracolich Head? Is that
no. I'm still working on that.
Oh my god! So you're making both the weapon and you're making the head?
Yes, I'm making both.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, here I got one. And check it for questions. No questions. Okay, so from the time that you started the dragon heads in the current design approach you have now with the engineering side of it, how long did the first head take versus how fast is your process now?
Oh, wow. Boy, the first one's probably took maybe a couple of months, working on it.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if all the guys out there that have bought my heads is going to scream at me at the moment, but it's not necessarily how much time it actually takes.
Right.
It's all of the practice runs before that you're paying for,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I have done a dragon head in 19 hours from start to finish.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
God, it's making me look
I mean,
bad. I'm just doing painting in Photoshop, and it's taking me a fucking year. Oh, God.
I've seen many of yours up close, and they all look unique.
There's no way that takes 19 hours. That is crazy.
Are these
That's
molds
awesome.
then? Are you able to do it from a mold?
No, well, I am doing it from I'm doing now, but I'm talking about from scratch, going to
Like foam
the
core, and then the tinfoil, and then building up with the.
No, the one that I did for the escape room in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I hope that's going to open up. Who knows with the coronavirus, but
Sure.
I did a huge one for that for the room that they had for the dark dwarven mining escape. I forget just exactly what it was all about, but he had. I did the carving of the foam core, and then the material alone on that ended up being about 60-70 pounds of material used. So it was huge, and it took me quite a bit.
Is that what's the name of that escape room business?
Escape Room USA, Indianapolis.
EscapeRoomIndy.com, is that them or?
Yeah, I think that's them.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
There's a couple different escape room places over there, I think. So yeah, make sure.
This one's above the spaghetti room, spaghetti factory.
Oh, awesome.
And they were going to advertise big, or still are going to advertise big with Gen Con. And
Nice.
I might even talk them into some kind of a deal for the tickets. So
That's awesome.
we'll see.
What were the dimensions on that head?
From the base of the neck to the tip of the nose, was 42 inches.
Oh my God!
And
Wow.
his neck was like that big around. It was huge.
So, how much did that thing weigh in the end?
Oh, it must have been right around 85 pounds. So to make sure that it didn't fall away from the wall, so I did this metal U-bar shape thing going up inside of the.
So it had a steel core. Okay.
Well, it had a steel rod running up in the foam.
Yeah.
And then I used expanding foam, like the insulation foam.
Like great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I just pumped it into the interior and let it fill up around that steel. Yeah. And then that way I could, carve.
Oh my God.
Get everything else all set up.
Your studio where you create all this stuff, it's at your house, correct?
Yeah, you're looking at part of it.
So how do you build something that dimensions in your studio? That would seem like it would take up your whole studio.
Well, I actually did that one in the garage. So I was covered with styrofoam beads. So I was covered. You use this horse brush, yeah.
It's
a round little brush, and you just take that and rake over the styrofoam, and it just comes off, and you just kind of. But it creates a mess. It's a huge mess because you're covered with beads after that.
Yeah, and the static electricity is just sticking to everything, right?
Oh yeah, sticks all over sticks over your pants. You really,
awesome.
Yeah. So, I like it, but it's like that's not the favorite part. The favorite part is when you get to the epoxy clay and you put that on.
Yeah,
and
that's when it's getting alive. That's when it's like waking up. So so of the heads you've built, nothing that not including things you've cast duplicates of, but like of original positives that you've made. How many things have you made now, or have you lost count?
Oh, I don't know. there's been quite a few. I don't know. I don't know a lot of things that I'm no longer making. I ran, like, there was a wine chalice that I did at one time.
Yes, that thing's awesome.
So hard to make, and I couldn't charge enough to cover the broken glass. And
how many did you go through?
Wow, you'd probably break 3 for every one that you got.
And that was just in the creation. That's not even talking transport, right?
Oh no, that's not even talking transport. It was just tricky. I'm going to revisit that and see if I can come up with a better way. Maybe, like, rather than casting around the glass with resin, then just setting the glass
how
down.
you do casting around glass with resin. Did you have to mask all the glass?
No, because silicone has that quality to it that's sticky,
Okay, yeah.
and it gripped the glass.
Okay.
So, you would grip in where it didn't have any, there wasn't any resin.
Yeah.
And then the resin would go in where it's the form is.
Negative space, yeah.
Yeah, the negative space. And,
That's bonkers.
yeah.
Those glasses are crazy. They melt my brain when I look at that. Like, when I saw you working on the door knocker, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That makes absolute sense.
Right,
I get how you do that. But then the glass, it just looks like magic. I'm like, how in the hell did he do that? I don't know. Anyway, sorry. I nerd out over that one. That one's crazy.
And nowhere did I ever see that done. I was just thinking, that should work, shouldn't it? I don't know.
Oh, man.
Aside from your large dragon heads, which are some of your, I think, really eye-catching pieces when people go by your booth, are those giant, what we like to call, like, your taxidermied, like, dragon heads that you have up there. But where do you get inspiration for a lot of your other pieces? Like, where do you pull inspiration from? Where you're like, I want to put something new in the booth. What do you go to when you find inspiration?
Well, sometimes, like the vent dragons, that actually,
That's genius.
it has a weird tale to go with it, because it started out when I was a kid. I had nightmares about gorillas being inside the ducks, and
Whoa. Why gorillas?
I don't know.
Gorillas in the ductwork? Of all the things that you could be in the ductwork, you were that gorilla.
Oh, it was intense. And then it got so bad that there for a while I'd have to walk way around any kind of duck.
That's amazing.
That's so amazing. Thank you, Lindy, for the
Thank you, Lindy.
Welcome, everyone coming from Laugh Love Lindy. It's the Wisdom Check tonight. We are here with our special guest, David Lee Pancake, from Art by David Lee Pancake. You'll be able to find stuff for his art that's being put here into the chat every so often. Make sure you help support artists out there right now.
Check it out. Amazing fantasy sculptures, jewelry, dragons, griffins.
Why don't we take a little moment? Why don't you just tell people who some of your clients have been? Who all of you sold your art to since going to these conventions? Let's just nerd out a little about your clientele. Do it.
I've had a lot of fellow artists by. That's true. I've had some authors by. That there was one that I went to Spectrum, and I didn't realize I was talking to Orson Scott Card, and all the time I was talking to him, I was critiquing his work. And then I ran his card, and I looked, and I like, oh.
You have Orson Scott Card's card.
Michael Whalen even has bought a door knocker.
Oh,
he has the Cthulhu door knocker.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Just a variety of people. So many people that we've sent a dragon head all the way down to Chile That was interesting. It cost as much to ship it as it did to make for them to buy it. They didn't speak any English at all, and we met at Dragon Con, and so my wife was translator. And we shipped that bad boy down to. It was a commission because they looked at what we had there, and they didn't quite like what I had, but they liked the concept, and so it ended up being another dragon with a pipe out of his mouth. And
I love that. That one was gray, right?
Yeah, that was gray.
I love that one. That's fantastic.
The one that we shipped to Chile ended up being like a burnished metal blue.
Nice. Wow.
I've shipped all the way to New Zealand, to Norway,
shipped to Middle
Japan, Australia. Some of those were very expensive ships. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't help. They get the sticker price shock twice. It's like, oh,
I can imagine. I mean, I know what it was. I know what it cost poor Air Laser just to get a TT2KB shirt to Canada. Like, I can imagine your dragon heads like all the way across the oceans. Like, that's gonna be nerve-wracking for you to send that thing, right?
Oh, very much so. I sent a couple of dragons out to Denver, Colorado, and they got crunched by UPS. And they were originals. And so we went to court. It was then that I learned that the UPS store and UPS are not the same, not the same company. And when we went to court, the judge was learning for the first time that was true too. And he took a really dim view of it. And I won.
Nice.
Well, congratulations on that, because that could be huge when you think about what that must cost.
So the people that ordered it out of Denver, did they end up commissioning a replacement, or did that just fall through for them? Okay.
They salvaged one. They kept both heads that were damaged.
Okay.
They salvaged one, and I really quickly made them another one and shipped it out again. So that's how
heartbreaking, but good story.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, by the way, I want to thank. We said Air Laser a while ago, and I want to thank her for her purchase.
Oh,
yeah,
that was nice.
She got a pendant, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I've seen a few other streamers out there that have your stuff too, and I would see them put it out there and talk about it. I know Stonefly, who comes and watches our stuff a lot, she has a piece of your jewelry as well. She had like a long time ago, before she even knew that you had anything to do with us. She had picked up one of your pieces.
Yeah, as it turns out, when you do this a few years, you have a few pieces out there.
So we always joke with hey chat. We always joke with Pan's dad that we owe him a lot here, because
that's right.
Honestly, I feel like well, I got to name drop the ones I know he sold to, because I nerd about it. So Adam Savage bought from you.
Adam Savage,
Satine Phoenix, and Matt Mercer, and Satine was part of the link through Gary Con that helped us get God, how many people did we get from just Gary? Was it you and Gary Con that got us that pretty much?
Yeah, we kept working at. I reached out to Satine and asked her to come on, and then there was Larry Elmore, and I know a lot of guys that you still got to get on here.
Just send us those names, and we'll definitely keep getting hold of people.
Yeah, once it settles down a little bit after Gary Con's had to cancel, we'll go back and we'll try to invite Luke Gygax. That would be a great guest.
Oh man! Oh my God! I'll be like nervous for Jeff on that note. I'll be like, look it up. It's Luke Gygax.
We were talking about families. How you guys came over to the house and you gamed there, and you felt like it was a safe place. And just think of what it was probably like for Luke and his brothers and sisters to grow up in that family. I'm sure there's quite a few interesting stories.
I'm sure there's got to be. I mean, I can imagine. This last weekend, I noticed they're doing a lot of virtual GaryCon stuff. I noticed, I saw Mike Pondsmith from Artasaurian was running Cyberpunk Red, and Luke Gygax was in that game, actually. And they had a lot of technical problems, so they actually reran it. They rescheduled, and I think they were running today. So I've been seeing a lot of virtual GaryCon stuff going on. Have you gotten involved with any virtual con stuff, since all these cons are kind of, unfortunately, this year getting wiped clean?
I hadn't signed up to do any kind of a panel or program. I should have probably. Probably next year I will. I'm signed up for Gen Con this year, so I'll have a couple of demos. I think I'll have a dragon sculpting demo, and I'll have a mold making and casting.
That's awesome.
So those always go over big. Like you do them down at Dragon Con, the room just gets super packed with cosplayers, especially for the guys that are interested in molding and casting.
Yeah. Well, that's the toughest nut to crack, I think. In sculpture, molding and casting, like everything else makes sense, but molding and casting, you've got to get the mold right. And there's so many material problems along the way and stuff you don't always see coming. So like that to me is like the hardest part of sculpture. I think everything else kind of makes sense, but that one is like tricky. So
I mean, I made a clay ball one time. That's about as far as I got into sculpting. So I listened to this and I'm fascinated because like I kind of know the process. I saw it done a few times, but like I can't even start to understand like some of the this is like material issues. Like I'm like, what kind of material issues do you mean? Like,
fire away, Dave. Okay. What material problems you've run into?
Well, with casting, especially with resin, you can end up with a lot of air bubbles in your cast if you're not, pressure casting, and which is what I do. I do a big pressure pot that I have that is used for, those paint jobs that they do for cars and everything. They fill up this big tank and they use this tank to spray the paint. Well, I don't use any paint in it. It's just an empty pot that gets filled up with air pressure. And I set my mold inside that and pour the resin in and then close it up, pump up the pressure to 50 pounds. And then that just causes all the air to bubble up out of the resin. And you end up with a kind of a pristine looking cast.
That's awesome.
So it's cool. It's very high learning curve.
Yeah.
It's a crazy learning curve.
Yeah.
Because there's all kinds of mistakes that you can do. One time I was pouring and I tipped over my resin and I tried to catch it. It ran off the side of the table. I said, well, I'll clean it up later. I don't want to waste this. I was trying to scoop up some of it, put it back, and then trying to pour. And I didn't realize, but the resin had flowed down onto my tennis shoe. And I thought, well, by the time I noticed it, it was getting a little warm, and I thought, well, I'll catch that in just a second. But just a second happened a little while later, and it was like, get the shoe off. And then it was trying to pull the sock, and the resin had kind of set, it was like, oh man, that didn't go well.
We got a question from Chat here. He didn't redeem any points for it, but I'll go ahead and take his question anyway. Shatsho says he wonders, does that help shrink the cast as well, since a vacuum might make it expand and possibly weaken it?
I think it makes the resin denser. I don't think it doesn't. The pressure pushing on it. If you don't have your molds supported well enough, it will cause it to distort. But if you have it, reasonably thick, walled for the silicone, or if you have a mother mold on the outside of it, the pressure just does the job.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. So I know one of the things that you've been doing a lot lately because of the lack of conventions is you've been doing a lot more with your Patreon. You've been putting out some almost instructional videos and giving people more behind the scenes look at some of how some of these processes look like. We're talking about how some of these processes work, but is there a way that people who want to see more of it, if they come to your Patreon, will they get to see a little more of these processes? Is that something you're putting out there?
Yeah, I mean, you can go on there and get for $2 a month. You can get access to the videos, and they're full-length videos where depth to how they're made. But I have this one project that I've been working on that I just released the time-lapse video. It'll be on YouTube. The full length will be on Patreon, but the maker, I did a maker's wand, Elder's wand.
The Elder's wand from Harry Potter.
With a little light on the end. That was a lot of fun. And that's something that beginners could do with epoxy sculpt. That'd be easy to do. I think beginner, intermediate, it may be a little tricky getting used to the stickiness of epoxy clay, but a lot of fun. And there's not a great deal of sculpture that you have to do there. You just have to get the knobs right, and poke the texture into it. Yeah. So it's not rocket science. It's just taking your time at it.
The one has a very elegant but simple design, is what you're saying. It is a pretty simple design when you really look at the whole thing. But it is cool though that you're getting to this point, like we're talking about this kind of sophisticated resins and the sculpting part of it. But it's really cool now that you're giving people a chance to really see the entire process, and in some ways get to try it themselves.
Redeemed question.
Oh, we got a redeemed one
from Jeff. Do you have that wand in the room with you?
He's asking loaded questions because he knows the damn answer.
Well, hang on a second. Let me go. I don't actually have it.
Jeff, just be on.
Hang on. I'll be right back.
This is followed back under Levi's no backseat gaming policy from Jeff, isn't it? This is just like Everstorm, where it's like, everyone can backseat game except you, Jeff. No backseat gaming.
Jack can backseat game all they want, except Jeff.
Oh man, there he is. He's picking up a few things there. Oh, he has it with him.
That's beautiful.
Look at that. Awesome. That is amazing.
That looks legit like the one that you literally buy. That is like either the regular or the special one from the Orlando park.
I was exactly just like there. And I mean, I don't know what the cost of the clays would be to build that. Like what material cost would you say that would take if somebody wanted to watch your video and follow along?
Well, it was $20 for the pin light. There's three quad A batteries in here, and maybe I think about $20 for a pound of the epoxy clay.
$20.
You won't use it all. You just that's the lowest amount you can buy.
You need to be. That's how you can buy it, and
And then it's just a matter of burnt umber and burnt sienna, and going over the top of the black, and then a little bit of white with a stain of. Hold it up. I guess that might make more sense. A little bit of stain on there, and then you can push the button at the end.
Oh, it's fantastic.
That is cool. Now, see, and what I was getting at is I'm pretty sure I paid more at Universal for my son's plastic wand.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
What you're able to with if I took the time to sit down and create one using your video, like I could create one almost cheaper than I bought one at Orlando for my son.
Well, and then you get the pleasure of saying, "Well, I made this,"
Right.
I'm not selling these. It's copyrighted material, but you can sculpt one and show people how to make them for their own personal use.
Right. And
education is a fair use policy, so you're good.
Yeah, this is not an item that will appear in your booth
No.
I mean, at any point in time, it can't.
No. But it is a lot of fun to make. So yeah. And you have something like, man, hey, look, kiddo, this is what your dad did.
And everybody, Dave used Aves epoxy sculpt, right?
Yeah. I like that one about the best. I've worked with Magic Sculpt and the stuff that Smooth On puts out. I love Smooth On, but not with that product.
And like everybody, Sculpey is like the low end grade that you can find at like Michael's. So there's a mountain of different types of acrylic sculpture clay and epoxy sculpt, but they really are different. Like the stuff I give my kids, I get $30 for an 8-pound box or something like that. So it's way cheaper, but at the same time, I can't get the quality he gets, even when I work with it, that what Dave can get out of his stuff. So with regular clay, there's a lot of similarity, but with like all the acrylic clays, like the kind he messes with that you can bake in an oven at home, there's a world of difference in quality. So like you can
this is no bake.
That's no bake. That's amazing. I didn't know that. Okay, that's awesome.
This sets up overnight.
Amazing.
You have about an hour and a half, 2 hours work time.
So is that the moment it's touching oxygen? It's touching air.
Oh,
it's already setting up.
Yeah.
Okay.
For people who are watching this, Clint found a picture of the giant escape room head that he has put up on the screen.
That's amazing.
As we're talking here, up above Levi's head, you can see the that's the not painted version of it. It looks like it's all white at that point still, but you can see the size of that head like that he built. He sculpted, I think.
Oh yeah, that's the styrofoam.
That's the styrofoam
part of it. Yeah, that's correct.
That's what he could do with styrofoam. That's just crazy,
right?
Well, that was just you take this big block of styrofoam, and then you draw on it the shape of the dragon. Then you go to the front of the big block and you draw how much you're going to have to take away, like the nostril and, where the eyes are going to.
The big chunks.
You just start raking and you take it down to where it looks like, I don't know, it looks like that.
So you have a dragon.
And there you go. That's how you do it.
That's how you do it. It's that simple.
I am going to do, we talked about the door knocker. I am going to do the door knocker as a class.
That's awesome. That's cool. Is that going to be on the Patreon, or is that going to be like the demo for Gen Con?
No, that's going to be, I think that's going to go around to the Patreon. And what I'm going to do on that is I took a little survey of how we're going to conduct the classes. So I think it's going to be 2 4-hour sessions on a Sunday.
That's awesome.
And I will provide the metal door knocker, and I will provide the design. I'll give you a couple of designs that you can work with, or you can do your own. And then you can get the clay from Amazon, and away we can go with that. And we'll walk you through it.
Nice.
Now, when if you're doing this class, when you're walking through, are you seeing their work as they're working on it and guiding them, or are you doing it and they just have to follow along at home? Like, is that?
Well, I'm hoping I can do a Zoom so that we can all see each other
both ways.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher, y'all, and Zoom is everything right now.
It is right now, yeah.
All of this morning on meetings about all the e-learning nonsense that we're going to go through. So it was a lot. Zoom is everything right now.
I've thought of several different ways of doing it. Zoom's that way. Facebook that way. You can do a private session with Facebook Live. But I thought Zoom probably would be the best bet. I don't know. I mean, you guys tell me. Are you guys?
I think Zoom would work fantastic.
One's as
for what
good
you
as the
wanna do.
best, and right now with its use, how many people are using it, they're going to have to keep boning up the infrastructure and making it work. So I think it's reliable.
I think that would be amazing, because what I was imagining in my head is that if you were doing these videos, like instructional videos on how to, people sign up for the class, then they get access to the video, they watch it, they try to follow along at home, and I'm like, so then are they sending you like a picture of their finished work, like look what I made, and then you're gonna see, because I can only imagine what mine's gonna look like by the time I would be done trying to do this. Like, look, Dave, you're proud of what I did. It kind of worked. Like I can't do that shit the way you guys can. I try and I'm horrible.
There's the giant Cthulhu. Yes.
Oh yeah, the big Cthulhu head up there too.
That's the finished. That was close to the finish of the dragon that goes in the escape room.
Oh, that's painted. That's sideways.
Yeah,
that's not
it's sideways. It was so big, I didn't have a way to hang it, so sideways it was. Then there was a tail that went with it. If I was really tech savvy, I could show you too, but Clint's doing a great job.
He is. He's always on top of it here with our picture needs. Anytime we've needed pictures, he always finds it and tosses them in. So he always does a great job.
There's the tail.
Oh, and he did. He found the tail too. See, he was right there on top.
That tail is awesome.
I thought, man, wouldn't that be fun?
42 inches, or is that longer?
Yeah, it's probably that at least. You can see it sitting that back of me. It was sitting back there.
Oh yeah, you can tell that's where that is. Yeah, you can see the art hanging there. You can tell exactly where that thing was. So, is it safe to say that your favorite things to work on are the larger pieces, like the larger dragon heads, or do you prefer to work on the smaller scale, tinier pieces?
I don't know. I kind of like both. I mean, sometimes it's really relaxing to know that you're going to get done really fast, and if you're got a little piece, but other times it's like, man, this is looking so awesome.
Yeah.
Feeling, you get that growing anticipation of what it's going to look like when it's painted. And
because when you work big, because your tools can only get so small. When you work big, doing detail work is easier because your tools are already the same size. So there's a weird stress to working small because you have a really thin margin of error. So but yeah, man, working big takes forever. Working big hurts.
Yeah, there's a large translation problem there because, I mean, when you're working large and then you go to small, your tools behave differently. You can make different textures. There's different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just different. I was working on this guy.
Oh my god!
And I got him to a certain. Obviously, he doesn't have any legs here, or a wing. This was going to be a little dice set holder.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
That is super cool.
So part of it's filmed already, and then I changed my mind, and then back to working with monster clay, because I could, with monster clay, it doesn't set up overnight, and I can change it, but it's very, I don't know if you worked with this stuff yet, Levi, but it is a very strong, waxy clay.
Okay.
Okay. And
so if after epoxy sculpt sets up, can you still add to it? Do new batches of it? Is it tacky enough to stick, or do they not bond well?
Oh, it bonds to everything. That's part of the problem.
Okay. So is it like
your tools?
Because I've messed with, because the stickiest stuff that was a tough thing for me to mess with was plasticine, because it's an oil-based clay. So it gets all over your hands, and as it gets warm, it gets more tacky. So it's actually hard to get surfaces sometimes with your hands. You have to use a lot of tools so things go well. So I was just curious. I need to get some epoxy sculpt at this point, because you talked about enough. I haven't messed with it. I just need to shut up and try some. So
yeah, it's fun to work with.
That's awesome.
I think what's really cool about a lot of your art, and it was something that I remember when you first went into doing this art, when people hear art, they think of it as like accessory luxury stuff, like having these big giant dragon heads or like pendant necklaces. There's so much of your art that you produce that's functional. Yeah. Things that are actually functional, not just pure art pieces to hang on a wall and look at, but like they have an actual purpose of things that they do.
Well, I like boxes for one thing, and I enjoy making boxes, and then the weirder they're better, you know. I like the door knocker. Man, I don't know what possessed me to do that, but I kept thinking, if I work with a metal door knocker that I just buy off the shelf at Lowe's, take it home, and add some clay to it, what could I do? And then how am I going to reproduce this? And so then that became like, oh yeah, I'll just buy another door knocker, I'll put it down into the mold, and I'll pour resin around it. And then that way you don't have to end up paying, you know, like if you look at a brass or a bronze door knocker that an artist has had, you know, reproduced at a
cast,
yeah.
Forge. Yeah.
You'd be at $700, you know.
Yeah.
But this way I could offer a door knocker for $160, you know.
Yeah.
And
it's just as all weather because resin's going to sit outside and not do anything. So
right.
Awesome.
And it's strong enough to withstand knocking, and I mean that's
the thing. The actual knocker part is the door knocker that I just buy off the shelf.
Okay, so it is.
He doesn't mod the striker, so the striker's the same.
He doesn't mod the
striker is metal.
Striker. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, that was one of the things I remember. I think when you first got started, there were, I don't know what you call them, but there were things that went on like laptop computers. And, you know, they attached us right to it. Like you had this, your art wasn't just like pieces that you set on like a shelf somewhere. They were things that you could use. It was like usable art. And I was like, that's some of the coolest stuff, is that it was usable art. Like you take it with you. It had function, and like it decorated and did things in ways that
the coolest.
The next thing I want to do is, you know, how they have these really wonderful gaming tables. But I want to build corners for those gaming tables.
That's brilliant.
So that you can just take that and glue it right down to the surface, and it would be a corner for that gaming table.
Is great.
Just like a cover corner with like a dragon head or something, like for the corners themselves. Just to
that's awesome.
You gotta next time they get these cons back up and going, you wonder your way over there to like Wormwood or somebody and tap on a few shoulders and be like, hey, I got this idea. And
the guy that I'm making the spear and the Dracolich for produces tables.
Oh, okay.
So we're already talking.
So you're already talking. You're already one step ahead of me.
Was he a C2E2? Was that his company?
No, he's definitely gone together, and I think he'll be at Gen.
Nice,
right?
So that'll be, maybe we'll have something by then. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. I hope so. I got plenty of free time now.
That can't go understated enough right now. Just what the loss of all this conventions is doing to artists like yourself and people out there. I mean, it is rough right now, and that's why we definitely want to do what we can to help promote what's going on. And if there are virtual cons and things out there, to get people to go and find these artists and do what they can to help support these artists during this time, because when we do get conventions back, we want those artists to still be able to be doing art, and you have to make it then. So,
yeah, no, it's a huge problem. I estimate about 30% year is gone. Just like that, just like you go one day and you wake up the next day and everybody's canceling, and you think, oh, nuts.
and at this point, we're all the way up to at least Gen Con, it looks like, correct? Is Gen Con kind of the first major con that's still on the books?
believe it or not, MegaCon has rescheduled for June. This is a comic and pop culture convention, but it's rescheduled for June 4th, and I think it's a little too early, and I think they'll probably end up canceling that too. That's a shame, but I think. And then Origins is right after that. I'm hoping maybe that it'll be okay by then, but I'm not going to hold my breath because I know, the thing is that people think, well, why don't you just rely on sales? Well, online sales have never been that. I've talked to a lot of artists, and we don't do well online for some reason.
There's a magic to seeing it in front of you.
That's what I was going to say. You can't even look at these pictures that Clint's putting up there in the corner of our screen. Like, those still will not compare to seeing that dragon head live when you walk into that escape room, or seeing your art up live
in front of you and knowing, like, I can get it now and then only I'll have it, and it's an original. And then you also have, like, the social pressure working to the artist's advantage, that they're in the place where everything's being sold and they feel like other people might try and get it before they can get it. But I don't know, at home you're too comfortable, Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the way it works out. I've had a few sales while Virtual GaryCon is going on, and I'm very thankful.
Great.
awesome.
It's fantastic.
I mean, that's where this commission came from, so that keeps me a little bit above water. Fortunately, I had just a bit, in my checking account, so that I'll probably sail through if we start up again in June. I'll probably make it, but it won't be fun.
No, I mean, this is rough on everybody out there. I think right now, like, it's certainly not a lot of fun. All the memes and sometimes jokes about all of it aside, there's very real ramifications that's going on out there, and I think that we need to do what we can to try to highlight what's going on in our hobby involving it. Yeah. I mean, GaryCon is doing what it can to get online here and have shows that would have been taking place with actual seats, where they probably could have actually made more revenue off of it. But now they're just doing what they can to get it out there so people remember that it was still a thing and that it's still going to happen in some form.
And you got to think too, this was put on by the Gygax family, so they're heavily invested in this. And then suddenly to not be able to hold the show, and you have all these people who purchased tickets and purchased dealer space, and they'll roll the dealer space over to next year. But there's a lot of folks who had made flight plans to come, and just hotel reservations and all the rest of it. And then this is got to be a nightmare for them. And I just feel for them, a really bad situation for them. But they made the best of it, and they went and they said, hey, how about doing a virtual show? And that was very, very smart, quick thinking to do that. I mean, they didn't have very much time. They only had maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks. I forget what it was, but it was a very short time to put this all together.
Yeah,
hard to do.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, they're really making the best out of it that they can. And I think we're going to see some of these other conventions that unfortunately are not going to be able to reschedule into that more hopeful time frame. I'm thinking we're going to see more of that coming down the pipe, because I think GaryCon has set a pretty good example maybe for what all the other conventions need to think about doing. And so I'm hoping that we're going to see more of them going online and putting these virtual cons together to help out in the meantime.
So at least there's something happening.
So there's something there where they can highlight artists like yourself and, other contributors, and help keep that awareness and keep you guys out there in the limelight where you need to be.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's basically what I'm trying to do with Patreon and also YouTube. Just providing a way for folks to connect and and understand what we do. It's tough to do, though. It's like scary. You lose 30% of your income for the year, and it could be more. Now we don't know because it doesn't translate it that if we start doing shows again, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody shows up, feels safe,
Right.
and feels like they can spin, because there's plenty of people out there that have also lost their income during this time period. So
I had to explain that to my kids last night, because I work in science. I'm a medical technologist, so I'm still getting up every day and clocking in and heading to work. And my wife is a mental health professional. She's getting up every day and still going in and clocking into work. And so with the exception of, it seems like summer break to my kids, they didn't understand that there's a lot of people out there right now who are not that fortunate. My week to week life it really has not altered much at all, except I don't get to do anything outside of when I go to work. Really, I come back home, that's kind of the end of it. So, and I've had to try to explain to them, because I don't think they understood exactly what other people are really going through right now with this whole ordeal. So it's been, I know, a lot on the forefront of my mind lately, just because I know how fortunate I feel like I am that I have to walk into these rooms with this deadly virus sometimes. And I feel like I'm not the lucky one, but at the same time, like, I'm not missing hours. Right. I'm not missing pay. I'm not worried where my stuff's coming from right now. I'm just doing my best to not get sick. So, I have a full appreciation for what you guys are trying to do to make all the ends meet and to try to get through this time, and to the effort you're putting into the Patreon and everything else. I really, really wanted to have a chance to get to talk to you guys about this and to help you get what you got going on out there, because I think more people need to really start looking for the artists and things that are going on out there and interacting with their Patreons and get involved with it and help get everybody through this time if they can.
Yeah, this is an attack on our culture as much as it is on, our health and economy. Without art, what do we got? Without music, what do we got?
Just gray survival, just everyday grind for what?
Yeah. And we're seeing people do extraordinary things right now that you never saw otherwise. I think, like, what was it, like Jimmy Fallon did like a show from his house.
Yeah.
People are doing their shows. The entertainers that are doing their shows from their houses for free. Just like things that you'd never see done anywhere else. Like, this is a rare, weird, strange time to be alive.
We had a doctor's visit scheduled forever, and they're like, okay, it's for this. They're like, well, tell you what, we'll just call. And it was a FaceTime with the doctor from his office in our house. Got a prescription. Yeah. It was crazy. So it's like, what?
Things that when this is all said and done, we're going to ask ourselves, why can't we just do that tomorrow? Like, why do I have to now go to the office? Last week he FaceTimed me and gave me one. Why can't I do that again now? Like,
crazy.
Yeah, virtual doctor thing.
Crazy. Strange time.
Yeah, it's a very, very strange time. And what can we say? We got to get through it somehow.
Oh, you know what? Jeff's got a point. He says, like, everyone's quarantine life right now is only tolerable to do Netflix, music, and art. So in a weird way, art's become that much more important, so we don't all become stir crazy. And yet, it's the hope we can turn people onto to your stuff. Like, hopefully that can be.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, I'm really, really excited about doing this silly spear.
Like, this is it.
I got the time, so that was the other thing that was happening with conventions, is that you don't realize how compact an artist's life gets with convention, then 3 days off, and then convention, and you really run fast trying to keep up with reproductions of your work,
Right.
And to get it out there, and it's very difficult at times. But at least I get the time now, so hey.
Yeah.
So is this
So are you building a surplus right now?
I'm trying to, yes.
Okay.
So yeah, they're definitely trying to build a big, huge surplus of whatever I can. So that
Are you focusing on like just a lot of cast stuff because you can knock it out,
Yeah.
or are you focusing on big new ones, or what do you want? Just what are you doing?
Yeah. No, I'm gonna a lot of the cast stuff. Try to get it out of the way, get it painted. That's here's the funny thing about the difference between a 3D artist and a 2D artist.
Mm-hmm.
A 2D artist is paint and then takes a photo of that painting or scan, turns it into a print. And I'm not going to minimize his efforts here, but
but it's different. It just go ahead and minimalize. I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, a sculptor, even a sculptor making a copy, is like a mountain of effort. It still is.
It's like, oh well, I put the print into a plastic bag.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I mean, but like, we both paint and sculpt. We both do both. And at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of prints. Like, God bless painters, but they are not also dealing with physics.
No.
Not really.
Well, the interesting thing is that Leonardo da Vinci looked down on sculptors, but he was a sculptor too.
Yeah.
But he felt that the purer form was 2D. Because you have to deal with foreshortening, and you have to deal with backgrounds, and you have to
lighting. We have to reconstruct reality from nothing. Thanks for Michelangelo. Michelangelo is the reason why he got the church to believe in sculpture as the same touch of divinity that painters had. Yeah. And that's why one of the first signed works of art is his Pietà. And the reason he signed it Michelangelo Sculptor, because he wanted to carry the title sculptor to elevate it to what a painter was.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't poop on sculptors.
I guess I didn't know that was a thing, considering that so many of the great works are in a lot of ways sculpted.
The majority is still painting.
It is. I get that. I'm just saying, because you had ancient works that were still sculpted, like Colossus.
It's because you look at the sculpture, right, and the sun does all the light for you, and painters go like, well, you didn't have to work that hard.
Oh, okay.
No. So. But with me, I have to, I can reproduce that. I can reproduce whatever I'm working on. But then I still have to go back, and I'm still painting the thing.
Yeah. You're still painting.
Yeah.
So
sculpture painting is it's a totally different kind of approach. It's a totally different approach.
Each one that you get is a unique piece in that sense. Because I'll never paint it the same way twice anyway. So
and anyone who's been by your booth knows that. You can look and you can see that they are most certainly each unique. Like, there's no two of them that are identical.
Yeah. I was told once by a particular art show that I probably won't mention, but I was told that I was somewhere close to not necessarily an artist, but more of a vendor crafter than I was an artist. But it's interesting, I no longer.
What were they designating the difference between those as? Like what?
Because I replicate, and which is silly because so do 2D artists. It's
the same thing.
Yeah,
his replication actually takes a decent amount of time. The replication of a 2D artist is not even done by the 2D artist necessarily. Not if they own their own. If they don't own their own printer, they're going to somebody else to have the replication done for them. At least David is still replicating his own stuff.
So,
Bullshit.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I guess in my head, and I'm not in the art scene, so I guess I assumed everybody replicated their stuff and that was normal, and that everyone would just look at it and go, that's what art is, and that's how you sell art, and that's how art works. Everyone knows, like, because to the layperson, everybody hears about, like, whether it's in movies or pop culture, right, when they talk about, like, well, it's always like the MacGuffin of some plot, right? There's an original something artist name who we don't know, right? They always talk about the original. So you know damn well that if they're talking about originals, there's a lot of not originals out there too. And not like some other artist trying to copy it to make you think it's original, but just reproductions of the original in some way, shape, or form. So I guess for me, I always assumed that was normal.
I don't know. There's all kinds of different opinions out there. You gotta kind of go with the flow sometimes.
So I mean, I know that every time I get to stop by your booth, and I've been by a few different cons where I've gotten to stop by and see your stuff, like, I'm always amazed by how every single piece, even if they are two of them, like I said, you take the time to hand paint each one of these differently.
I love all the detail.
No two the same.
Yeah,
there's so much detail on them, and every single one of them, you can tell that you have
is unique.
There's not a lot of splashed on colors outside of lines where they shouldn't be. Where you're very the way I do my Warhammer minis. If those things got up close, you'd see how horrible they are, because by about the fourth out of my 300 zombies, like, I didn't care anymore. Okay. But every one of the detail, it's amazing. Like,
yeah, there gets to be a lot of I mean, I don't know if you can see this is the raw resin for this guy.
Okay.
And then, of course, I had to reattach his horns for the casting process. So different eyes. I put in different eyes. It's got paint over the top of him right now. But
okay,
each one gets a little different there.
Is the eye inserted from the inside?
The eye, I have a special way of doing that. And I use paper clips. And I make a little umbrella clip like that, a little hook.
Yeah.
And I drive it into, I put the eye on in the mold. And then on the backside, I come down with this paper clip and drive the clip into the silicone itself. And that holds it in place. And then I pour the resin around it.
And then the resin pours around it. That's brilliant. That's awesome.
That's every once in a while with something that's works. Can't tell you how many times I tried to do that and failed. Oh, the piece that Clint has up right now, that went to Stefan Porcani.
He's got a lot of your work.
Yeah.
He has a lot of your work.
How much does he have?
He has 3 heads, I think, and some other pieces.
More than that.
That's awesome.
I think I could be losing track myself, but
Nerd Chat, if you don't know Stefan Picorni is the creator, CEO of Dwarven Forge. So all those
a sculptor and artist himself.
He himself is also a sculptor. So it's got
to be a special honor to have another sculptor come up and be like, I want your work hanging in my house.
So.
That's like, it's one thing to be like, I want a piece of your art sitting on my shelf, but he's like, I want 3 of your largest pieces of work you have hanging in my house.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like place of high honor. That's great.
He has a great room that he has as a game room, and it's pretty spectacular. His collection is really diverse and fun to look at. He commissioned a dragon throne done with chainsaw. Did you see that? I mean, I did.
That thing is amazing,
man.
I do all the social media work for TT2KB, and so part of the privilege of my job for our little group here is that I go follow all these people, and then I spend all day scrolling down through there, and things like that come up on his, and I get to see it, and I'm like, oh look, and then I'll look on there, like he'll have some shots. I'll look like, oh look, there's one of David Pancake's dragon heads back there. I see
awesome.
it. Like, I can see it in the background, like when he's doing something. I'm like, there it is. That one's hanging right up there.
That's awesome.
It was an honor. I especially There's Stefan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, see.
myself. And there's the one he bought is right behind too. I think. Yeah.
Yep, that's one of them that he has, I'm pretty sure.
So that was fun.
And I mean, those, and you, like I said, you spend so much time in detail on these. Like you name almost all of these. Like a lot of these dragon heads are named.
Oh yeah, yeah. The series that I have going right now, Big Head, is Slither. But in Slither, you can have different things, sculptural elements added to him, like an acorn or devil horns to augment his other horns. I'll just sculpt those on as I'm preparing the individual order, and then I'll paint differently, and then I'll come up with different eyes.
Oh man!
And
that's how they start out for the eyes, huh?
yeah, that's how they start out. There's just a sheet, and you can see on this one. Let's see, where am I going?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are raised up, yeah.
Yeah, those are just glass cabochons glued onto the sheet. And then what I'll do is I'll get them into the drag. I will backlight them with LED lights and a little battery pack.
Now that's like a whole nother level of technical component that you've added over the years. Is the backlighting of the eyes and the backlighting of, well, sometimes like that Dracolich, the whole thing's backlit.
Yes, yeah. And that's why I say that I am a maker. It's not only art, but it's a maker, and I like identifying that way. It's engineering problems sometimes, and then it's also learning a little electronics or a little bit about where to find this particular product or that product to augment the thing. So quite fun. But
have you considered moving on to other materials? Have you considered doing like metal or?
Oh yeah, I have, and I've done a few classes where we did some bronze pours and that type of thing. I have a friend who's been in the business for many, many years, and he does only bronze. Bronze is a challenging, it's
outright dangerous. Like
it's dangerous.
Yeah.
The one class that I took, we were pouring outside, and
yeah.
This is at the Indianapolis Art Center, and it began to rain, and a single little drop of water hit the crucible, and up popped right out of there a little BB bead, about so big, hit the guy's leather trousers in just such a way that it went all the way down his leg.
Oh my God.
He did a dance. It was entertaining.
Wow.
Not for him, but for us.
We were, the way our sculpture building was set up for my major, we had a single room dedicated to pouring, and it was the crucible was built into the floor, and they had a giant garage door that opened up, and my professor would set the ingots on top of the crucible to warm them up to room temperature. Well, on this one pour, this guy's like, all right, let's just so we just go, and he picks up the ingot and gets ready to just chuck it into the crucible. And my professor screamed at him because he's like, if you throw that in at room temperature, that explodes right now. And we're like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. He's like, put it down. Like, okay. And it's like he never yells at anybody, so we're like, oh shit, we almost just died.
My dad just got a forge.
Oh, really?
Fantastic.
And he has a wood shop already, so he's already got a bunch of the stuff to do, make bowls, everything else, right? And I thought about getting into the wood stuff, but now that he's going to start blacksmithing, like my grandfather was a blacksmith, So like,
Awesome.
it's kind of, so I'm excited. Like once he gets this thing up and running, like I'm going to take my shot at maybe starting to make something as well. Like
That's awesome.
I don't know if I'll ever hit a point where I can be like, all right, science, fuck off. I'm going the route of David Pancake. I'm going to set myself up a booth and start making some stuff out of iron. Like I don't know if I'll ever be able to make that jump, but I'm at least interested to get to try to make something. So
Well, bronze casting is cool because anything the problem is how much it costs, setup, materials, everything. But the cool thing is anything that burns can be cast.
Yeah.
Anything. So we had a professor that would hang out that wasn't a sculpture professor. He was an ag professor and he was buddies with my teachers. And he was constantly eating oranges. And he would occasionally, when we get ready to pour, he would take his orange peels. He'd attach them to the wax sprue and the cup and then dunk them in investment, burn it out, and he would bronze cast orange peels. So then when he'd be done, he'd have this perfect orange peel in the shape of made out of bronze. Like what parents would do with their kids' baby shoes back in the day, he'd do the orange peels.
Yeah.
It was weird.
to what end?
I don't know, because he was friends with the sculpture professor.
Because it looks cool. Yeah,
It's
you
cool.
capture the texture.
Okay.
That's not the weirdest one. I got a weirder one. Do you want to hear the weird one?
Yeah.
For it.
So at the end of the semester, my professors would have a party at their studio at their house that we come out to. The first time I did that, I see that sitting on a weird shelf, okay, I'll try and break this down. So anything that burns, right? That's the idea. So you take your object that you want turned into bronze and you realize that is instead going to be a hole someday that will be filled with bronze. So then you attach to the bottom of it a chunk of wax and then a cup and you turn it upside down. Then that gets put into a cylinder of basically a plaster mix that's called investment.
Yeah. Slurry.
Yeah. And then that goes into a kiln where it all melts. So now you have a hole, and then that's what you pour the bronze into.
Lost wax casting is
Lost
what
wax
it's
casting.
called.
Yeah. And so then sitting there on the shelf, I see two little of the cups with the sprue with these little things. I don't know what they are. It looks like a sphere with all these tendrils coming off. And I'm like, what are these? And then my professor's like, oh, those are my dog's balls. I'm like, why? She's like, why not? I was like, she kept him. It was crazy. And I was holding it. I was like, It was bizarre. It was so crazy.
Wow.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen bronzed. Everything in my life.
Coming soon to David Lee Pancake's art booth, Dragon Balls. Coming soon.
And Dave, I don't know how ambitious you feel about Cthulhu stuff, but they didn't do it. My professor didn't do it, but they had a friend who would purposely buy squids and octopi, like from a fish market.
Oh, wow.
And then run wire through them and invest them and cast them.
Oh, that's wild.
Which is like, I don't even know what that would look like. It'd be bizarre.
But that'd be smelly on the.
Oh,
of course,
so
probably
smelly.
The dog balls were probably pretty smelly too.
Yeah, they probably were. It's crazy.
I don't know. I don't think. But I do jewelry, and I do small like pendants in bronze and sterling silver. But the way I'm doing that is I will sculpt the original and make a silicone mold, and then I'll use metal clay. But the metal clay is actually just.
I've never played with it, but that's so cool. That is just it still melts my head that it exists as a material.
It's metal that's suspended in a food gel product.
Okay.
And then you push it into this mold and you let it dry. Now it's fairly fast drying, but I let it set for like 2 or 3 days, and then I'll peel it out of the mold, and then I'll take it down to the kiln and I'll fire it. And through a process called sintering, sintering, it'll fuse those metal particles together, and it won't lose its shape. It'll stay its same shape and become a solid piece. And all the food products gone.
That's so. How hot do you have to burn?
Oh, you have to get it really hot, above 1,500.
Okay.
Like some of it's like 2,000 degrees stuff,
Okay.
And you have to let it sit there for several hours in the kiln to get it to cure out. But
right, is that toxic while it's curing or no?
No. They claim that the whole thing is just completely safe. You put the dried out pieces into charcoal particles, and it sits inside the granulated charcoal, and then that whole pot heats up and it just cures out. It's a really fascinating process.
That's awesome. So, and all this is self-taught, everybody. Get out there, read some books.
And the only person we don't want seeing this episode is his insurance company. They're not allowed to watch this. Everybody else, we'll pass around everyone except his insurance adjusters.
He's doing what?
Clint's got one of my pieces of jewelry up.
There you go. And you can see just the level of detail in that thing.
Yeah, it's not lost. It's all there.
It is not lost at all. That's amazing.
But over the years, I've taught myself how to do offset printing, silk screen printing. I've taught myself how to program a Cisco router, how to set up a web server and a email server, and do the metal clay, and what else have I taught myself how to do? Oh, the computer thing all over again. And I think my next project, I've done a lot of 3D modeling when I was at your company, but I think I'm going to pick that up again and go for some 3D printing, especially for some of the small stuff. Because if you can sculpt inside a computer, you can sculpt at the size that you feel comfortable with, and get that to print out,
Well, Clint just said earlier on the text that they make a filament that can be used for lost wax.
Yeah, they do.
Cool.
There was, before he got sick, Bean was his last name. I'm trying to think of his first name, but fantastic. Adam Bean. There we go. Adam Bean, and you probably still find his artwork out there on the net. He was a fantastic sculptor in that he could capture a person's likeness in an uncanny way. But he came a 3D printer that printed in wax directly. And you could print this and get started. You refine your sculpture after you got it out of there. You can still sculpt wax, and then you could go right directly to bronze at that point.
Wow.
So you think that 3D printing then is the next step towards speeding up your process? Well,
and I'm still old school. I still like doing hands-on. I mean, something about it is personally enjoyable to me. But I'm not intimidated by the computer in any way, or I don't think that it's going to replace, anybody. No. But the challenge is, it was a new challenge. It's something that I'm interested in learning. And I think that I can produce some really, really small stuff.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
A couple ideas.
It lets you work on a new scale.
Yeah. I want to get down to about this size, and I want to do a little fairy and maybe put her in a crystal.
Yeah.
So something like that.
That's awesome.
That is amazing. Well, we are pushing near the end of our 2-hour mark.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Believe it or not. So we are about ready for some outros. So Dave,
it'll take us 10 minutes to get through all the words.
We've been working on streamlining it down. So
I was pretty sure that you guys were going to be like, what are we going to talk about?
Oh no,
See,
no.
okay, listen.
I wasn't worried.
Listen, if it was just me, I'd have been worried
Yeah.
because I don't do enough art to understand these processes to ask informed questions. That's why I got Levi. Levi over there,
I like how
and how hot. I'm
all
like,
this is
wait,
couched
he does
and I
a
know what I'm
thing.
doing.
I'm like, wait, he's a thing. Like, I didn't have ever asked him how hot he has to make a kiln. Like, that's what I got a Levi here for. Is this kind of? There's a reason I set out when Larry Elmore was on the show because I'm like, nope, Levi's got to go in. on this one. This is-
You guys put me on that show because I begged you to put me on that show.
That was an awesome show.
there was some begging, but it didn't matter. He was going to be on there one way or the other because he.
Larry Elmore, you gotta let me on the show.
Larry had some really good stories to tell too.
Oh my God,
When he started off, I was like, "Oh boy, here we go."
So good.
There are just some shows where I just know that like it's one of the things we want to do with Wisdom Check from the get-go was when certain kinds of people came on here, like if we have a musician on here, I will gladly step aside and be like, Cameron, get your ass in here. You're going to talk to him because I don't know what to say. So, no, I know one of the, like I said, I wanted to have you on the show like a year ago, because I know there was a lot of talk at the time about how important things like safe spaces were, and that I considered your house to be one of those places for us. And it always meant a lot to us that we had somewhere we could go, and we wouldn't be here right now doing any of these shows if we didn't have places like your house and Levi's house, really, even to go and play D&D back when nobody wanted to play D&D. So, those things always meant a lot to us, and just seeing the art everywhere and your stained glass, your self-made stained glass dragon light fixtures and everything else you did at the time, like
I knew like I would automatically love it when I walked in and the wall was covered in Star Trek action figures still in the package. I was like, I am okay. This place is great. I'm gonna be fine. I was like, this is awesome. He has taste.
And a lot of that was Kat. So she also contributed. She likes collectibles, and they're all up around my studio right now.
That's fantastic.
I don't know if you can.
Fantastic.
There's none on that. Hang on, right there.
Yeah, there they are.
Got them way up there higher now than they're still up there. So.
They go all the way around. There's tons of them back here.
That's your live-in audience. That just
that's my live-in audience.
He's Federation supported.
So, if we can, Clint or somebody who's on TT2KB at the moment, let's get that Patreon linked back into the chat again so we can direct people back to Art by David Lee Pancake.
Yeah.
Get on there, get the, there we are.
Yeah.
Art is the command if you want to see it on there. There's his website, his Patreon. Help support David Lee Pancake. His art is amazing. You will not be disappointed with the product when you get your hands on it.
The detail is crazy gorgeous. You can get as close as you want, and you will not find flaws. It's good stuff.
There are already people in the chat who own his art and will vouch for it, and will tell you that it is fantastic. So get on there, help support him. For us here at TT2KB this week. Levi, close your ears. Tomorrow is Bardic Knowledge, and it's this really good show where Cameron makes game music for Levi's game. And somehow him and Levi have gotten to a pissing contest while he's making music for Levi's game.
He's making music for my game. I have yet to actually hear play during my game. I'm just going to point out, I'm getting all this promise of a product that I don't get to use yet.
So everyone out there, remember, you got it tomorrow, 8 p.m. for Bardic Knowledge here. That's Central Time here at TT2KB. Cameron will be, I think he's probably going to continue working on the new piece he started last week, if I had to guess.
Cam's show is really good. It's like my third favorite show.
It's his third favorite show.
It's my third favorite.
And this is where Jeff will have to correct me if I'm wrong. But Wednesday night Wednesday night, we're starting something new here at
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are.
It's been a long time coming, but we are finally ready for our character introductions for Pathfinder 2nd edition. Wednesday night, we're going to be getting on here. And
Psyched.
we have spent the last, probably 2 weeks seriously looking at characters for Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Yeah.
If you're in our Discord, you have gotten some sneak peeks at what those characters might look a little bit like, because we found some art that we posted in there. Like, look at us. This is our character. It's not our art, but it's in there. You'll find it. That's kind of some of our inspirations for our characters. You'll get to find out exactly what we are and exactly what we're building and how we're building it and why. And all of that should be Wednesday. And I'm assuming that's 10 p.m. because we're replacing it with 7 Days to Die with
we're
that.
swapping 7 days out for that.
7 Days to Die is moving over into the Thursday slot. So Thursday will be 7 Days to Die. And that should stick around the 10 p.m. slot as well, because I'm in those things and I work on Wednesday and Thursday till 9:30. So they're starting in your that. They're starting without me.
They start at 10.
So a lot of these things sometimes have to do a lot with my work schedule. So it's a 10 p.m. for those 2 nights this week. We are moving again 7 Days to Die from its regular slot over into Thursday, and it will run there now because my Zweihander game has ended. So there no more Zweihander for a while, but it will be coming back later this year. Then we skip Friday. We take Friday off. Unless Levi's doing a DM into art. Is there any DM into art happening this week, Levi?
Yeah. We're going to DM to art Wednesday or Thursday in the afternoon, something like that.
Okay, so
we're going to start Fulcrum.
We're starting Fulcrum this week.
Fulcrum.
We're done with Balron.
I want to be absolutely done with Balron, the Demon Beast of Ulisans. I'm going to show off Balron completed when that show starts. So it'll probably be Thursday.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait to get to see this thing done. Like I said,
so do I.
This has been the most Balron love that we've had in a long time, because Cameron was making his theme and you were doing his art at the same time. I was like, this whole week is dedicated to me.
And I'm just not even going to bother getting to more gain because Cam can wait.
So the feud between them has become amazing. And then there's this Saturday. Are we doing anything Saturday, Levi?
We're doing Everstorm this Saturday.
Everstorm returns Saturday, 10 p.m.
What 3? No, 4. 4.
What is it called, Levi? Have you named it?
Shit.
He's on the spot a day earlier than usual, because usually I have to start buttoning.
There's no title yet
for this.
I'm sorry.
No, it's still untitled. What we do know is
Great and Powerful. That's what it's called.
The Great and Powerful. You heard it here first. Scoop on the Wisdom Check Monday night. Saturday's Everstorm game is
the Perilous and Powerful. Sorry.
The Perilous and Powerful.
There we go.
So Perilous and Powerful. This Saturday, we're going to find Skeezer Prime. That's what we're doing this week. At least we think we are.
Thanks for following, Hockey Boy.
Thank you for the follow. Saturday, our 5e game Everstorm returns. You'll find us here 10 p.m. and we'll be reprising the roles of our characters, and we'll be going to find Skeezer Prime, or at least what we think is Skeezer Prime. Maybe he's just another Skeezer. Who knows?
Once again, the grit sets sail, this time with only maybe 10 people on board, as opposed to 120.
We had to pick teams like Kickball.
Yeah. Not you. You can go.
No. Levi's voice for this guy's really funny. We'll take him.
That was one character.
That was one character.
Yeah, but he's funny.
Yeah. So that's what you got to look forward through the rest of this week. And that then, of course, will bring us back around to Wisdom Check next Monday. Our guest will be, if you come here next week, and let me find the list, because we moved people around and now I forgot. And next week, that's right. Chris from Two Socks from Featherfall Tabletop's going to be here next week.
Sweet. Featherfall's doing well.
He is DMing the Curse of Strahd currently over on their channel. And I want to talk to him now, because we had DM Bob from Featherfall Tabletop on here a little over a year ago, and when they were here last time, they were still Dad Bod D&D. And they went through a huge revision of what they wanted their channel to be and a rebrand. And I want to dig in a little with them about how that's impacted their community and how they've grown from it and how their community has really adapted and changed because of those different rebrands. And we're going to talk a lot about all the real positive stuff they got going on over there. I think that a lot of it's come out of that rebrand. And so we're going to talk a lot about that next week, plus all their new shows they have going on. And their real successful stream they did yesterday, a 12-hour marathon for the coronavirus support relief stuff. So
Nice.
it was super cool that they did all of that as well. They beat their goals, and we'll talk about all that next week. So you'll be able to tune in and find us there. And now,
check out the Patreon for David Lee Pancake. Look at his
right.
stuff.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. Thank you again, David, for being here. Levi, thank you for taking time to join us and helping run this show tonight.
Thanks for letting me talk to Dave. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we're ready.
You're an inspiration, sir. Good luck out there.
Thank you.